Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for spending your valuable time with the Adapt 2030 channel. These four headlines here sum up the last 3 years of work on this channel. High food prices, sun blasting, volcanic cooling/warming, and boulder swarms inbound. Dollar Tree closing their stores due to heat. Never heard of this before. Maui fires, climate change. Look at Kahului area. Temperatures over the year. EU looks to block out the sun, or they're trying to obscure something from our view. U.S. soybean production, purple, drought areas. Corn production, purple, drought areas. Prices up. Oh, what happened to the wheat? I don't see any for the carryover stocks for the year, because the most precious resource to keep our food coming has been disturbed by jet stream patterns and magnetic fields of our sun changing. Oh, farmers would welcome this breath of fresh air. And those of you who followed the Adapt 2030 channel for many a year will just see these four as, yep, you've been talking about that. Here it is for you. Sun blasts out highest energy radiation ever recorded. Gamma rays, Tonga, now hitting the news headlines. Those of you who were with me last year in December would have had a 6 or 7 month head start on this news article. Food prices jumped to most record. Well, that was a no-brainer. And the boulder swarms come in. They call it the Fuzz 2025. They're just going to drip feed you to get ready for it. But when we look at space, maybe we can't look at space because now the EU wants to block out the sun for some climate mitigation, but at the same time, that will block your view from viewing the night skies or sunrise, sunset times. So I'm wondering, what's the true purpose behind it? Because if we look back in 1,000 years, they'll have found our crashed space debris, and perhaps we will look at a world instead of Stonehenge, space debris henge. How many chapters of lost history are there in our recent past that we're not privy to? I mean, how much do you really know about 10,000 years prior, 8,000 years prior? 6,000 years, Chaldeans, 7,000 years, Sumerians. But go past that, further back. Between the exit of the Younger Dryas era, say 12,500 years ago, until 8,000 years ago, missed it. What happened to that 3,500 or 4,000 year gap of history that we know nothing about? That's just in this interglacial. Something's missing. So we turn to farming. We all need to eat. Beautiful wheat fields. I see loaves of bread in disguise right there, but that's just the way I look at it. So jumping on to the soybean production, staying in field crops here. The purple line is areas in drought. And as we come into August 8th here, we start to see drought, but it does look like it's tapering off. So you have to wonder the amount of damage done during these drought cycles. And as you see 2 peaks here, we are talking cycles. And we're into 2 different years for the marketing year as well. And this is the corn production, and it follows very similarly that soybean production. So you could anticipate higher prices due to not the largest of yields, but again, those are all estimates until it really comes in. And if we look at the U.S. spring wheat production, and that purple line is screaming north, and I'm wondering where it's going to head to as we come to the end of the year here. But I did want to point out something with the wheat. As the USDA put out their ending stocks, billions of bushels. I look at the 2023 years, corn's there, soybeans there. What magically disappeared? No wheat. Jerome Powell and the Fed raised rates for the 11th time in July. The Hill warned it's a mistake that could spark a recession. Economists believe this is the last rate hike in the most aggressive rate hike cycle in history. Rate hikes are typically headwinds for gold. Meanwhile, gold has gone up over 20% since 2022. Imagine where gold and silver are going to go when the Fed stops raising and starts cutting. Call the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group has the No Fee for Life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold or silver on qualifying rollovers. Give them a call, 888 546-7020. And now on with the video. No wheat. We've used everything that we've grown and even dug into the carryover stocks, meaning what you grow is what you get from this point forward. Now it's laughable that we come into 2023 and 2024 and they feel they're going to put on like 600 million bushels, because you're not even at 1, so it's billions of bushels, so 0.6 is 600 million bushels. Whereas somewhere around corn, you're looking at 2.1 billion bushels for the 2023-24 year. But it's kind of laughable. You go from 0 straight up to a billion bushels, like, nah, come on. And if we look over at the sales, this is another indicator here. This is off U.S. Wheat Associates. I get their newsletter. If you look at the prior year, 2022-23, that's the blue line, which is now. Metric tons. And then we look forward into the 2023-2024 numbers. It's even down from this year. So where do the carryover stocks go? And how is the USDA forecasting all this out when another independent agency shows that next year is going to have less production and less availability for sales than this year? A lot of questions to ask about this. And I'll pull you over to this most interesting agriculture footprint chart here, map. Feed and fuel or food. So if we look at the green areas, it's predominant food production. But if we look at the purple areas, mainly for ethanols and animal feed. So I'm saying, if we take off Canada because it goes offline 40 degrees north and above because of this grand solar minimum, we'll take off parts of northern China and the Heirloom and north of North Korea, that whole area, swing over into Russia as well. Now you take all that offline, the amount of animals is going to need to decrease with that. And whatever's happening in the southern parts of our world with this Hunga Tonga eruption, still an unknown. So I want you to look at it in just a simple plus and minus column idea here. For the last 3 years, we've been told we need to eat less meat. But what's been happening in the last 3 years has been less grain production in these areas stretching 40, 45 north and above to the North Pole, and 40, 45 south down to the South Pole, which includes southern South America, southern parts of Australia. So if there's not going to be as much animal feed, you would have to have some ratio to scale the animals down with it. 1 to 1. Like human carrying capacity, if there's not enough food, we just simply don't eat. There's not going to be enough humans on the planet to balance the food supply. Now, currently, we're digging into the feed supply for the animals. And the messaging has been what for the last 2 years? Anybody got the answer? Eat less meat. You got to look at it. Could you come out and tell a populace, by the way, you got to eat less meat because we can't grow the animal fodder, the feed for them in these areas, 45 north and south, because the shift of this from the sun, the grand solar minimum's on its cycle again. You think that would panic people a little bit? Or are they going to throw some excuse and keep you in a fear base of, oh, you're going to have more control, you can't eat meat, you got to eat this, that, or the other? But for me, it just really boils down to, push the scatter aside. Push the scatter wave aside. The interference pattern, just let's look right into the middle of it. Less animal feed means less animals. Now the messaging, however it goes out or whatever it is. But the actual cause will not be discussed. That can't be taxed. The sun. And the repercussions of not having enough feed for the animals needs to be greatly discussed, but it seems like it's going to be pushed, not discussed. And then further down the line, humans. Then what? That's the question, really. That this is now a reason people would have problems with their heart because they're touching the soil. Just saying. Because I'm looking at Campbell's soup and I'm looking at tomatoes. Campbell's condensed tomato soup unit price per can from 1898 all the way to 2023 January. So way back in 1895, year 1900, a can of Campbell's soup would have cost you 10 cents. But in today's world, we're looking at least $1.20. But if you're going to Dollar Tree to get your Campbell's soup, sorry, the store is temporarily closed due to extreme heat. And I sat there and I scratched my head for a second. Have not seen stores closed unless it was the store's air conditioning unit was out or something like that. But this is just because temperatures outside with a heat index, they just said, hey, close the store. Okay. I'm thinking refrigerators then. Refrigerator. Yep, this is the kind of cars we're going to. You're going to have to keep repairing it and re-repairing it unless you want to get onto a monitored automobile. Keep that refrigerator close at hand. And speaking of that, some of the ferocity of these fronts that are coming through, you've seen the amplification, haven't you? We all have. And that was trying to be explained away in many ways, shapes, or forms. Atmosphere is cavitating and is behaving unruly, and it's going to get stranger as we move. Also, look for more volcanism and the electrical discharges as well out of the volcanic activity, which is incredible to witness. Before they thought this was something of a legend. But all these types of increases are inbound. And also off the Washington Post here, this was August 12th article. The Maui fires, they're talking about compound disaster. I really hadn't heard this compound disaster word before. Now they're trying to layer things on top of things. So underlined in red, Hawaii's on the verge of 2 degrees warmer than it was in 1950. And I thought, okay, that's interesting because the temperature charts are incredibly available on all the islands. So looking through the Kahului area, I know it's on the other side of the island, out by the airport. It's not exactly in Lahaina. But a 2-degree difference in Celsius is quite some difference. That's like 4 to 5 degrees Fahrenheit different. So you should see a giant spike if this were the case. And even if you go through the entire year, nothing really, pops out of the averages. In the past, it looks like. So the way you can read this chart here is you look at that 90 degree off to the left side there. Those spikes are the hottest for each individual year from 1954. So let's say one year was 95 degrees. You'll see that major spike there somewhere around in May. So whatever over the last since 1954 until this year, whatever the hottest was, it was 95, 96 degrees. That will be the hottest temperature for that day on this chart over the entire normal period. So then we look at the blues, and that's the actual temperatures for this year as noted observed temperatures through 2023. And also if you go to the bottom, the drops out, the dips or whatever, that is the coldest for that day of the entire range from 1954 to 2023. Wherever it sits, and if this is true, what we're seeing with these headlines, especially the Washington Post, there should be something, pushing up near 100 degrees in this chart, but I just don't see it. For those of you looking at satellite imagery, I'm still stunned and in awe and disbelief of this. You have the largest military base in the Pacific, less than 90 miles away from here, and our military is not over there jumping in on it. It's shocking. It's almost numbing to see how the lack of response is going on. And as I was looking for updates on the fire, I came across Christopher Green, who I've watched for years anyway on AM TV. And he was talking about the lack of communication over there. And the number one thing was, there's no communication. So he had his bug out bags, and people were making fun of him before the fire. Like, why do you have so many bug out bags? Why do you have so many radios? Why do you have all this stuff? Exactly that reason, because it came in handy. So he was able to hand out different bug out bags to people to, get some communications and keep people in the loop by just having simple ham radios, GRMS radios, and CB walkie-talkies. So think about that if you want to have something in and around your house. I have a marine radio that I use because I live right near a bunch of lakes, so I go out boating sometimes, take that with us. So just something to think about. It really drives it home that we do need to get prepared for something unknown like this. How long would you last if you didn't have food, water, or communications right at your fingertips? I do appreciate you watching. Hope you got something out of the video. That link's in the description box below with tonight's images, stories, graphics, so you can do more research and share with your friends and family in these changes, in these changing times. Bye for now.